Welcome to the Love Story with Lisa channel. Today, we're bringing you a brand new story. I have a marriage engagement with the Duke's mansion. In the 16th year of the Longqing reign, the region of Yanzhou suffered a severe drought. The 3 mu of barren land my family owned yielded only a single shur of grain, barely enough to keep 5 mouths alive. Faced with this, my grandmother decided to swallow her pride and walk more than several dozen li to the Duke's mansion to ask for help. Our family had farmed the land for generations. We had never had the slightest connection with the powerful and noble families of the capital. But when starvation looms, a person cannot cling too tightly to their dignity. Sometimes pride must be put aside just to survive. Late at night, my grandmother sat quietly, thinking over every person she had ever known, however distantly. Suddenly, her eyes lit up. She slapped her thigh and remembered someone. A distant relative of her sister-in-law once had a kinswoman who served as a concubine in the Duke's mansion. Even if she was only a concubine and not the principal wife, if we could obtain even a little silver from the gaps between their fingers, it would be enough for farmers like us to survive for half a year. My parents were not very supportive of this idea, especially my father. My father was an honest and taciturn man who knew only how to bend over the soil and work from dawn to dusk. The sweat that fell from his body onto the earth might as well have been divided into 8 parts, each drop pitiful in its own way. Yet a man like him believed that it was better to endure hunger than humiliation. Hunger can be endured, he said. But losing face, I cannot bear that. My grandmother scolded him immediately. What nonsense are you talking about? Why do you look so sour? You only care about your own pride. Have you ever thought about your wife and daughters? You've been useless your whole life anyway. If you starve to death, you'll just become another stinking pile of dirt. But Chun'er and Xiu'er are your own daughters. As their father, can you really bear to watch them be sold off as child brides to be raised in someone else's home? My grandmother had always despised my father's stubborn temperament, so whenever she spoke to him she never held back. Her words struck straight into his heart like knives. After hearing her harsh rebuke, my father looked at my mother's swollen belly. She was already 7 months pregnant. He sighed deeply, then turned around, picked up his hoe, and went back to the fields to continue working. That year, I was 10 years old. My younger sister, Lily Chen, was 4, and the baby in my mother's womb was nearly 7 months along. Once my grandmother made up her mind, she acted immediately. That very night, she packed a large cloth bag. The bag was stuffed with several kinds of fruit, cheap, but very fresh. Originally, she had planned to go alone, but just before leaving, she paused to think again. Then she pulled me out of the bedding. Chun'er, come with Grandma. From Peachwater village to the capital, she said, walking would take nearly 4 shurchen. The moment we stepped out of the house, we were already walking beneath the moonlight. Grandmother said that visiting people in the afternoon was improper, especially a place like the Duke's mansion, which surely valued etiquette above all else. Since we were already shamelessly going there to beg for help, we absolutely could not lose our manners and risk making them dislike us. In the northern countryside, early mornings were filled with heavy night frost. The moonlight was pale and white like snow. I clung tightly to the hem of my grandmother's clothes as we walked step by step along the mountain road, pushing through thorny bushes and wild grass. My pant legs were soaked through, but I didn't even notice. Chun'er, are you tired? After who knew how long, Grandma turned around. White breath drifted from her mouth as she spoke. No, Grandma. I'm not tired. I know why you brought me along. Grandmother chuckled. Oh? Why is that? Because I'm just a little girl. If we travel this far as guests, they surely won't have the heart to send us away empty-handed. Grandmother burst out laughing. Your father and mother are both like pieces of wood. How did they end up giving birth to such a clever child? I lifted my head and flattered her. I take after Grandma. Humph. You really do take after me. Your father. Honestly. If only your aunt were here with me, that would be wonderful. Grandmother had 3 children. My eldest uncle died young, before he was even 10. My aunt, Aunt Linda Chin, had married far away in Suizhou. Every time grandmother mentioned my father, she could not help thinking about her daughter instead. I had heard that my aunt's personality was very similar to hers. Unfortunately, Aunt Linda had married far away and had not returned home for 10 years. By the time the sun climbed high overhead, Grandma and I finally arrived at the grand gates of the Duke's mansion in auspicious alley of the capital. After the gatekeeper asked about our identities, an elderly woman with flowers pinned in her hair led us inside through a side entrance. I was still young. Looking up, all I could see were endless red gates one after another, rows of golden-roofed buildings, and beautiful people dressed in red and green robes walking to and fro. My grandmother greeted everyone with a smiling face, speaking only words of blessing and courtesy. Her back had always been straight. But now she looked exactly like a branch heavy with ripe persimmons, bent over, unable to straighten up. From the moment we entered the mansion, she repeatedly warned me along the way, always keep smiling, answer whatever people ask, don't look around everywhere, don't talk nonsense, and never casually eat other people's food. So I forced my lips into a big smile until my entire face nearly stiffened. The person we had come to visit was a concubine in the Duke's mansion. Her surname was Zhou. In the mansion, everyone called her Madame Julia Zhou. After Grandma brought me forward to greet her, Madame Julia Zhou beamed brightly. She took my hand and praised me again and again. Look at this child. She's so pretty. She doesn't look like a farmer's daughter at all. Grandmother sat humbly on a small stool, speaking modestly without stopping. For the child to catch Madame's eye is already her good fortune. Chunner, why aren't you kneeling to thank Madame Julia? Oh my, what are you doing? Madame Julia Zhou said quickly. Help the child up. The moment I knelt down, an elderly servant woman lifted me up gently and told me to go play outside. Grandmother looked worried and kept winking at me, signaling me not to cause trouble. Seeing this, Madame Julia Zhou simply smiled with elegant composure. Her bearing was noble and graceful, just like the imperial consorts in the palace I had once imagined. The Duke's mansion was enormous, far larger than our entire Peachwater village. Following the old servant woman who was leading the way, I quickly became dizzy from looking around. Everywhere I turned, there were courtyards, corridors, and buildings stretching endlessly before my eyes. When we returned to the small courtyard where Madame Julia Zhou lived, I saw my grandmother's eyes shining brightly. Her face was flushed with excitement. Anyone could tell that this trip had already brought her quite a harvest. I have to go dine with the Madame Julia Zhou said. You two may eat something simple in my room first. I'll come back later. Perhaps from talking too long, she seemed a little tired. As she stood up, she coughed several times. My grandmother immediately panicked, fumbling with her hands, not knowing what to do. She thought she must have somehow caused the problem. Ahem. This is an old illness of mine, Madame Julia Zhou explained kindly. For decades now, every autumn it becomes difficult for me to breathe. There was even a hint of apology in her gentle voice. The lunch we ate in the Duke's mansion was something I would remember for the rest of my life, in the future. When I had children and grandchildren, I could boast about it for 3 days and 3 nights without getting tired. Since the day I was born, I had never eaten such a delicious meal. There were fish and duck, dishes piled with meat, food glistening with oil and fat. I didn't even know the names of those luxurious delicacies, but one glance was enough to tell that even a small plate would cost as much as a farming family's entire month of living expenses. Grandmother wanted to keep her manners. After all, this was someone else's house. But our stomachs were too empty to endure. Fortunately, the old servant women and maids in the courtyard were very considerate. They all quietly stepped away while we ate. Only then did the two of us finally relax and eat until we were completely full. After lunch, the maids brought fragrant tea. I secretly tugged at Grandma's sleeve and whispered, "This tea is so bland. It's not even as good as the leaves we brew at home." Grandmother quickly covered my mouth. "Don't talk nonsense. What do you know? Just drink it." So we kept drinking one cup after another. When we reached the 3rd cup, an elderly servant woman walked into the room cheerfully and said to my grandmother, "Old Madam Lee, your good fortune has arrived." The madam heard from Madame Julia Zhou that relatives had come to visit, and she wishes to see you immediately. Come with me. What? But I haven't prepared any proper gift for the Duchess. How could I dare meet her? My grandmother stammered, both embarrassed and frightened. The madam in the servant woman's words was the principal wife of the Duke, Lady Sophia Dou. It was said that not only did she hold a noble title, but she also had powerful relatives within the palace. How could simple farmers like us, with mud still on our feet, ever dream of meeting someone so important? But the old servant woman would not take no for an answer. Even though my grandmother was clearly nervous, she still pulled us along toward the Duchess's courtyard. As soon as the curtain was lifted, Grandma and I stepped into a warm and fragrant room. Inside were many women wearing brilliantly colored robes, their hair adorned with gold, silver, and precious jewels. Some were young, others older, but my eyes were immediately drawn to the 2 children playing on the carpet. One had their hair tied into little horn-like buns, while the other wore a small brocade cap. Strangely, the 2 children looked exactly alike. When meeting people of such high status, my grandmother's legs trembled slightly. As for me, I stood stiff and frozen, like a clay doll in the hands of the potter at the market. After kneeling to greet them, we were told to sit down and drink tea. At only 10 years old, I was so embarrassed I nearly wished the ground would swallow me whole. Tea again? I truly couldn't drink any more. At first, I had thought Madame Julia Zhou already resembled the noble consorts of the palace. But compared to the grandeur and dignity of Lady Sophia Dou, Madame Julia Zhou was still far behind. Unexpectedly, however, the Duchess's personality was quite friendly. She burst into laughter and leaned sideways on her couch, calling out to my grandmother, "Why are you sitting so far away? Come here and sit on the chair." Grandmother's face turned red as she hurriedly bowed. I wouldn't dare. Ahem. You country people worry too much," Lady Sophia Dou said with a laugh. "Don't look at the Duke's mansion and think we're wealthy. In truth, we're quite hollow inside. Honestly, living like farmers is much more comfortable." "We farmers are just people with bare feet in the mud," Grandma replied quickly. "How could we ever compare to those born into fortune? Haha. So fortunate that even this body of mine is already ruined." "You still look very healthy," Grandma said hurriedly. "You will surely live a long life and enjoy the blessings of many descendants." While my grandmother busily chatted with the Duchess, I focused my attention entirely on the pair of children as beautiful as jade carvings. The two of them had such gentle temperaments. Even though they couldn't untangle a 9-ring puzzle toy for a long time, they showed no impatience or irritation, especially the boy wearing the brocade cap. His lips were always curled in a cheerful grin. As for the little girl with the horn-like braids, although she was young, she already carried the calm and elegant bearing of a refined young lady. Looking at her, I suddenly thought of my sister Lily Chen back home, with her dark skin from playing under the sun. But if it came to fighting, my little sister would definitely win. This trip to the capital had brought my family quite a harvest. Madame Julia Zhou gave us 10 taels of silver and 5 or 6 sets of old clothes. Lady Sophia Du gave us 30 taels of silver, along with several bags of pastries, dried fruits, tea leaves, silk fabrics, medicinal herbs, and dried meat. The young madam of the Duke's mansion, the mother of the pair of dragon and phoenix twins, heard that my mother was close to giving birth. Thoughtfully, she gave us a bundle of old baby clothes and toys. She even specifically ordered her servants to pack 2 life-preserving pills for my mother to use during childbirth. Oh, and the young madam also gave me an exquisite black lacquered wooden box. Beautiful patterns were carved on its surface. Standing beneath the begonia tree in the courtyard, her sleeves swaying gently, she spoke softly, "Chunner, in a few years you will reach the age of coming of age. Consider these pieces of jewelry an early bit of good fortune for you." Grandmother immediately tried to make me kneel again to give thanks, but the young madam quickly helped me up and said gently, "It's nothing at all. Please don't do that." When we were leaving the Duke's mansion, Madame Julia Zhou even ordered someone to hire a carriage to send us home. But my grandmother couldn't bear to spend that kind of money. As soon as we reached the city gates, she dismissed the carriage and instead hired an old, shabby donkey cart. By doing that, she saved several dozen copper coins, enough to buy 4 or 5 dough of grain. If it hadn't been for the fact that we were carrying so many things from the Duke's mansion, she wouldn't even have hired the donkey cart. By the time we returned home, it was already late at night. My parents looked at the half-cart of autumn windfall we had brought back, feeling both happy and worried. Happy, because we would not starve during the coming winter. Worried, because we had no idea how we could ever repay such a great favor. 40 taels of silver was an enormous fortune for our family. Grandmother wanted to use the silver to start a small business. But my father wanted to buy grain instead and quietly store the rest away in case of emergencies. "We're just farmers with mud on our feet," my father said. "What business could we possibly run? Didn't you see Wang Wu at the east end of the village? Last year he opened a silk shop in the town. This year he's so poor he's begging for food." Grandmother stomped her foot angrily. "Then why don't you look at Li Zhen in the West Village? He made a living selling steamed buns and even managed to marry a wife. And Chen Dong and Old Man Chu, didn't they all get rich through business? Why do you only compare yourself to failures instead of successful people? You're exactly like your father when he was alive." After being scolded, my father didn't say a single word. Stubbornly, he simply turned around and went out to the fields to work. My mother had a gentle temperament. Caught between her husband and her mother-in-law, she could only try to persuade them, "Mother, please don't argue with the children's father. Just listen to him this time. A woman follows her husband after marriage, and later follows her son." Though unwilling, my grandmother eventually had no choice but to listen to the wishes of her only son. Thanks to the kindness of the Duke's mansion, that winter our family not only avoided starvation, but when the neighbors ran out of food, Grandma secretly took out several dough of rice and told them to cook porridge for the children. In this way, the entire Peachwater village struggled through that harsh winter together. Fortunately, the following year brought good weather. Rain fell at the right times, the winds were gentle, and the villagers' lives gradually improved. During that period, my mother gave birth to Leo Chin. At last, the Chin family had a male heir. Because my mother was already older, the childbirth had been extremely difficult. If it hadn't been for the life-preserving pills given by Lady Sophia Du, perhaps neither my mother nor my little brother would have survived. For that reason, as soon as we harvested fresh vegetables from the fields, Grandma made another trip to the Duke's mansion. The Duchess had once casually mentioned that she liked vegetables grown by farmers themselves. Grandmother remembered those words firmly in her heart. Naturally, the Duke's mansion remained as generous as ever. When she returned, she did not come back empty-handed. Time passed quietly. In the blink of an eye, I was already 13 years old. Leo Chin had learned how to walk. Lily Chen had become even fiercer at fighting, and I had grown more mature, beginning to manage the household like an adult. Children in farming families grow up year by year. The princes of the imperial family were the same. The emperor currently had 6 sons. Aside from the eldest prince, who came from a lowly background and had no interest in competing, and the 6th prince, who was still wrapped in swaddling clothes, the remaining 4 princes were all eager for the throne. Among them, the 3rd prince, Prince Julian, was famous for his virtue and benevolence. It was said that he had also formed connections with many powerful ministers. All of these rumors I heard from Brother Leo Lu, the man who sold candied hawthorn sticks in the village. Brother Leo Lu loved gossip. Every time he came, the entire village gathered around to listen to the latest news from outside. Thanks to his sharp tongue and endless stories, he had not only built 3 houses but also married a gentle and virtuous wife. One autumn day, Brother Leo Lu came carrying his pole of candied hawthorns again. This time, however, he brought an even more explosive piece of news. The 3rd prince has been placed under house arrest by the emperor. The Duke's mansion, which was allied with him, has had all its property confiscated. After buying a candied hawthorn for Leo Chen, I had just turned to leave when I heard this news. My legs instantly went weak, and I couldn't take another step. Which Duke's mansion? When did this happen? My voice trembled. A cold feeling I had never experienced before surged through my chest. Seeing my reaction, Brother Leo Lu thought I was simply curious. Feeling even more pleased with himself, he replied proudly. In the capital, how many Duke's mansions could there be? It happened about half a month ago. I heard the whole family was exiled to Mount D Tower. Even the servants were all sold off. The autumn air was cold, my ears rang loudly. I could see Brother Leo Lu's lips moving, but I couldn't hear another word. Mount D Tower, the coldest and most unforgiving place of exile, that was where Madame Julia Zhou, Lady Sophia Du, the young madam, and the 2 children who once played with the white jade 9-ring puzzle on the crimson carpet had been sent. How could that possibly happen? That night, I ran home crying. Grandmother immediately rushed to the capital. She refused to believe it. How could such kind people as the Duchess and the young madam have their family property confiscated by the emperor? She said. Meanwhile, I stayed in Peachwater village holding Leo Chen in my arms, waiting. I waited an entire day and night. Throughout that day, my mind was completely lost. My mother kept quietly sobbing. Even my father, who treated the fields as his very life, did not go out to work for the first time. Instead, he paced back and forth in the courtyard, sometimes sighing deeply, sometimes frowning in silence. Finally, in the middle of the night, a carriage stopped in front of our house. The whole family hurried outside. We saw Grandma stepping down from the carriage. Her face heavy and solemn, she carried a wooden door panel down from the cart and brought Lady Sophia Dew inside. Lowering her voice, she spoke quickly to my father. My parents immediately carried the door panel into the house. Holding up a lantern, I lifted the curtain of the carriage. Inside, I saw Lady Sophia Dew and the two identical children leaning against the carriage wall. The Duchess's eyes were tightly closed. Even in the darkness, her face looked gray and lifeless. Without asking any questions, we carefully carried her into the house. Lily Chen led the two children away. Only after everything had been arranged did I finally whisper and ask, "Grandma, didn't they say the entire family was exiled?" Grandma first sent the carriage driver away. After closing the door, she shook her head sadly. No. The imperial consort in the palace pleaded for mercy, and His Majesty granted a pardon to the Duke's mansion. Children under 10 were not included on the list of exile. The Duchess was also spared because of her weak health. But I felt a sudden panic rise in my chest. But what? Grandma's eyes turned red. On the day their property was confiscated, Madame Julia Zhou fell into a severe asthma attack from grief. She didn't survive. Before she could finish speaking, tears rolled down Grandma's cheeks. I stood there, stunned and motionless. Gone, the kind woman who had once held my hand, praising me again and again. Who had even prepared such a lavish meal for me, had suddenly left this world. If it hadn't been for her, perhaps my mother and Liu Chen would not even be alive now. Yet before we could repay even a fraction of that kindness, our benefactor was already gone. How could this happen? For the first time in my 13 years of life, I felt the cruelty of fate. That night I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. Only toward dawn did I vaguely see the pale light of morning through the window. Grandma later told us that she had found Lady Sophia Dew and the two children in a ruined temple in the capital. After suffering such a terrible shock, the Duchess had fallen gravely ill. Grandma spent a great deal of money hiring 3 physicians from the nearby town to treat her, but her condition did not improve. Because the Duchess had already lost all hope of living, she refused even to drink her medicine. The precious medicines she had once given to our family, now piled before her, were completely useless, because she would not take them. Seeing that she was about to die, Grandma thought of a desperate plan. She took a filthy branch from the latrine, wrinkled her nose, and placed it under the Duchess's nose. Sure enough, before long the Duchess began vomiting violently. Grandma quickly seized the moment. Holding the Duchess's shoulders, she waited until the woman gasped for breath with her mouth slightly open. Then she poured the medicine straight down her throat. "Duchess, forgive me," Grandma said. "I know you don't want to live anymore. But you must live. You still have your grandson and granddaughter. They are so young. Your family has already angered the Emperor. If you do not protect them carefully, I fear no one else will. You are their grandmother. You cannot think only of yourself." As she spoke, Grandma gently rubbed the Duchess's chest. "Your granddaughter is so beautiful, like the little dolls painted on New Year pictures. If human traffickers sold her into a brothel, what would happen to her? And your grandson, he looks like a little jade boy. Could you bear to see him captured and turned into a slave, trampled and abused? I'm a few years older than you. I may not know much about the world, but at least I've lived a little longer. We farmers have a saying, as long as the green hills remain, there will never be a shortage of firewood." Then Grandma lowered her voice and whispered, "I'll tell you a secret. I can read fortunes. I've already looked at your fate. Your good fortune still lies ahead." Whether it was because the medicine finally began to work, or because Grandma's half-made-up words had an effect, from that day onward the Duchess's condition slowly improved. By early winter, she was already able to sit on a stone in the courtyard, drinking tea made from wild leaves and basking quietly in the sunlight. The twins of the Duke's mansion. The boy was named Du Jian. The girl was named Du Anji. They were only 1 year younger than Lily Chen. I still remembered the first time I had seen Jian in the Duke's mansion. He had been a child who laughed constantly, but now he often frowned and spoke very little. On the other hand, Anji, influenced by Lily, had become a lively and bold girl. Once, I even saw her carrying a stick, chasing and fighting with the boys in the village. Even so, the two children still retained the etiquette they had been taught since childhood. Ever since arriving at our home, every time we ate a meal they insisted on waiting until all the elders were seated before they would pick up their chopsticks. Unfortunately, my father was a strange man. In his eyes, there was nothing in the world except farm work. Once he started working, he often forgot even the time for meals, but the two children stubbornly insisted on waiting for him. If he did not come, they absolutely refused to eat. Later, my father became so embarrassed that he had no choice but to sit at the table on time every day. He even washed his hands very carefully before eating. Grandma often secretly complained about my father to the Duchess. "Look at him, Duchess," she would say. "My son is really a stubborn mule." The Duchess would wave her hand in dissatisfaction. "How many times must I tell you? Don't call me Duchess anymore. You're a few years older than me. Just call me sister, or call me by my name. My name is Ma Yuhua. From now on, just let the children call me Grandma Ma." Grandma was both embarrassed and admiring. "How could that be? Your status is so noble, while that name Yuhua is really beautiful though," she added awkwardly. "Elegant and refined." "Don't say such things," the Duchess replied with curiosity. "What's your name then, sister?" Grandma answered reluctantly, "Li Dahua." The Duchess chuckled softly. "That's a fine name too." Our house had 3 rooms. 2 of them were bedrooms, and 1 was the kitchen. Now there were 9 people living in the house. My parents and Liu Chen slept in the west room. Grandma, the Duchess, me, Lily Chen, and the 2 children slept in the east room. Fortunately, the east room had a long heated brick bed, Kong. Otherwise, there would not have been enough space. Even so, when the twins first slept on the Kong, they caused quite a few amusing incidents. It turned out they had never slept on a heated brick bed before. At night, it became too hot. They kept crying out that their bottoms were burning. Those poor children. So delicate and fragile. Now that they've fallen into misfortune and returned to the countryside, even their bottoms have to suffer. After that, my father no longer dared to heat the Kong too much. My father was a man of few words. But he understood gratitude very deeply. Not everyone could perceive the kindness hidden in his quiet heart. The Duke's mansion had been confiscated too suddenly. Grandma Ma and the 2 children hadn't even managed to bring spare clothes with them. Grandma Li originally planned to alter some of the old clothes that the Duke's mansion had once given us so they could wear them. Although they were second-hand, the fabric was excellent, comfortable and elegant once worn. But Grandma Ma firmly refused. "Now we are people who have fallen from grace. If we dress too well, it will only invite criticism. From now on, however you live here, we will live the same way." Life in Peachwater Village was truly harsh. Here, people ate only 2 meals a day, most of the time. The meals consisted of coarse steamed buns made from rough flour, thin porridge, and pickled vegetables. Occasionally there were fresh vegetables, but farmers could hardly bear to eat them. Even when they harvested them, they usually carried them to the market to sell. As for meat, there was no need even to think about it, since Grandma Ma arrived. However, my father had managed to catch 2 wild rabbits in the mountains. That evening, the entire family enjoyed a lavish meal of rabbit stew. Grandma Ma felt so distressed that she kept lamenting, "What a waste. This is like eating pure silver." Lily Chen, who loved food, gnawed happily on a rabbit head while arguing back, "These 2 rabbits would only sell for a few dozen coins anyway. And a few dozen coins isn't money?" Grandma Ma shot back, "Honestly, at some point Grandma Ma had become even more frugal than my own grandmother. With 3 extra mouths to feed, 2 of them children who needed nourishment, the pressure on the household became enormous. So during the idle winter months, my father often went into the mountains to chop firewood and hunt. When luck favored him, he could catch wild chickens, rabbits, or even deer. My mother took on laundry work for wealthy families in the nearby town. Each bundle earned 3 copper coins. But the well water in winter was icy cold. Her hands were red every day, swollen like carrots. Grandma Lee was not idle either. All day long she mended clothes and repaired worn shoe soles. There was no other choice. With 5 children in the house, we couldn't let them wear torn clothing. As the eldest daughter in the family, seeing the adults so busy, I took the younger children up the mountains to gather pine nuts to sell. Wealthy families loved this snack. After gathering pine nuts, we would sit on the kong incubating chicken eggs, hoping that by spring we would have plenty of eggs to eat. Everyone in the family was busy, everyone except Grandma Ma. Having nothing to do made her restless. "Sisterly," she said one day, wrapped in a thick cotton coat while sitting on the kong, her expression dissatisfied. "I'm about to become someone who eats for free without working. That won't do. Today you must find me something to do." Grandma Lee lifted her head, rubbing her stiff neck. After hesitating for a long time, she cautiously suggested, "How about walking around the village and asking if anyone wants to sell land? Chenner's father says he wants to plant more fields next year. Leave it to me." Grandma Ma rolled up her sleeves and turned to leave immediately. Strangely enough, although she had always seemed physically weak before, now that she had recovered somewhat, she moved as swiftly as the wind. Indeed, although Grandma Ma had once lived in luxury, her 10 fingers never touching water in spring, her frank and generous personality quickly won the villagers' affection. Only a few days later, she returned with news. 3 families in the village want to sell land, she told Grandma Lee. In total, 12 mu. Each mu costs 3 taels of silver. We just need village chief Lee to write up the contract. Grandma Lee's mouth fell open in shock. 12 mu. That's 36 taels of silver. Our family. We can't afford that. Grandma Ma froze for a moment. "Oh? Then I'll go bargain the price down." "Bargaining would be good," Grandma Lee said helplessly, "but 12 mu of land. We truly can't afford it. Even if we gathered every coin our family possessed, we still had less than 30 taels of silver." In the end, my father clenched his teeth and bought 5 mu of land at 2 taels and 8 mace per mu. The price was very fair. In the 11th month, Peachwater Village welcomed its first snowfall of the year. Lily Chen and Annie Du ran outside happily to throw snowballs with the other children. Meanwhile, Jian quietly avoided the crowd. Holding a dry branch, he crouched alone and silently wrote characters on the snowy ground. I could not read, but even I could see that his handwriting was beautiful. The once beloved and noble grandson of the Duke's mansion, once cherished beyond measure, now wore a patched cotton coat, crouching in the snow and writing with a stick. He did not even have the cheapest brush. looking at his small, lonely figure in the cold. My nose stung and my eyes almost filled with tears. Half a month later, it was the twins' birthday. I asked cheerfully, "Tell big sister, what do you two want as a gift?" As expected, Jian shook his head. "I don't want anything." So I turned to Annie Du. She smiled shyly. "Big sister, I want the salted sesame oil cakes from the Duke's mansion." All right, I agreed immediately. But when I went to ask Grandmama, I realized the problem. Not only were they sesame oil cakes, they were the special ones from the Duke's mansion. How could I possibly know how to make those? Grandmama became irritated when she heard. That girl is really hard to please. Do you think sesame oil cakes are easy to make? I asked quickly. It's just a cake. Is it really that hard? It's not hard, she admitted. But you need an oven with the right heat. That's easy, I said. We can just ask Father to dig a pit and build a stove. Grandmama snorted. That won't do. Just for one bite of cake, it's not worth the trouble. I laughed. What's wrong with that? Our house has so many children. It's not like only Annie Du likes to eat. Leo Chen and Lily Chen, don't they like food too? Finally, after hearing my persuasion, Grandmama told me how to build the oven. I repeated the instructions to my father. In just one day, he used clay and mud bricks to build a dome-shaped oven. Sometimes I really suspected my father was born under the sign of Earth. Otherwise, how could he be so dull most of the time, yet become so clever the moment anything related to soil or fields was involved? After giving birth to Leo Chen, my mother's health had never fully recovered. Once the snow began to fall, she could no longer continue washing clothes in the icy water, so I took over that job for her. Every 3 days, my mother would go up to the town once. Each time she would bring back bundles of clothes from wealthy households. We would wash them clean, dry them carefully, then return them and earn 30 copper coins. Seeing that I was strong enough, I secretly increased the amount of work. Instead of 10 sets, I took 30 sets each time. I worked day and night, and each trip brought in 90 copper coins. Whenever I had a bit of extra money, I would go up to town to find Shuisheng. Shuisheng was the second son of village chief Li. He was currently studying at the Bamboo Pavilion Academy. His temperament was gentle and easygoing. When I asked him to help me find someone to copy books, he immediately agreed. That's easy, he said. There are many students in the academy who are struggling and don't know how to pay their tuition. The copying fee is 20 copper coins per book. How many books do you need copied? I took out 150 copper coins from my pocket. My hands were red like carrots from washing clothes in freezing water. Brother Shuisheng, I need 4 beginner books for children around 6 or 7 years old. With the remaining money, please help me find the cheapest brush, ink, and paper you can. Even secondhand is fine, as long as they can still be used. All right. Wait for my news, he replied quickly. The next time I came to town, he had already prepared everything. When I received the items, I held them as if they were precious treasure, feeling as happy as someone who had just won a lottery. While I was in town, I also bought a sack of white flour, a bag of sesame seeds, a jar of white sugar, and various spices. Madame Margaret Du had already explained the method. After returning home and finishing the laundry, I began trying to make salted sesame oil cakes. During the days I had been busy, my father had fired up the oven several times. By now, the humidity and temperature inside were just right. Under Madame Margaret Du's guidance, I kneaded the dough, added yeast, prepared the rich oil layer mixed with white sugar, shaped the cakes, sprinkled them with fine salt and the secret spices, rolled them through sesame seeds, and carefully placed each cake into the oven. Unexpectedly, it seemed I had a bit of talent for cooking. The very first batch of salted sesame oil cakes I made received praise from everyone, especially Annie Dew. The little girl ate so happily that her hands and feet danced with excitement. Her small face shone with delight, sesame seeds sticking to her cheeks. "Big sister, the cakes you made are even tastier than the ones from the chefs at the residence of Duke Harrison Dew." Beside her, Lily Chen stood proudly, her face full of pride. "Of course. Even the pickled vegetables my big sister makes are the best in Peachwater Village." I laughed and gently tugged at her braid. "Don't think that flattering me like this will make me prepare dried persimmons for you." At once, Annie Dew's eyes lit up. "Dried persimmons? I want some. I want some." Leo Chen still couldn't speak clearly, but he was already craving them so much that he stamped his feet. "Eat. Eat. Eat." Only Jian sat quietly to the side, chewing slowly. His manner was refined and composed. Even in the way he ate, one could see the bearing of a young gentleman from a noble and prestigious family. "Jian," I sighed silently in my heart. This child carried far too many thoughts for someone his age. When the twins' birthday arrived, I solemnly handed the books and writing supplies to Jian. Just as I had expected, his eyes instantly lit up with joy. The moment he received the gift, it was as if I had understood the deepest wish hidden in his heart. "Big sister." His voice choked with emotion, as though he might burst into tears. I patted his shoulder, my heart full of pity. "The books are copied ones, and the brush and ink are second-hand. You'll have to make do for now. Next spring, big sister will send you to study at the Bamboo Pavilion Academy." "What?" The moment I said that, everyone in the family stared at me in shock. I nodded seriously. "I already asked Brother Shuisheng. The tuition at the academy is 1 tael of silver per month. But if he only attends during the day and returns home at night, it's just 800 copper coins. That includes paper, brushes, summer drinks, and winter charcoal." Grandma Li, Madame Margaret Dew, father, mother. The residence of Duke Harrison Dew may have been confiscated now, but who knows? One day the family might rise again. Jian is the eldest grandson of the ducal household. If that day truly comes, can we let him remain illiterate? So this education must be arranged. As for the money, please don't worry. Years ago, Lady Sophia Dew gave me a box of jewelry. I think I can pawn it for some silver, enough to cover the expenses. If that's still not enough, our family has land. And I can sell these sesame oil cakes. There's no way we can't afford to support one student." The room suddenly fell completely silent. Then Madame Margaret Dew's choked sob broke the stillness. "Chunner." She grabbed my hand, deeply moved. "It's already difficult enough for you, yet you still think so carefully about our Dew family. I never expected such a young child to have a heart like yours." Before she could finish speaking, she burst into tears. Grandma Li quickly pulled her into an embrace, her own eyes brimming with tears. "Chunner is right. Our family has so many adults, we can surely find a way to support Jian's studies. Jian is a good child." "Madam Li, my heart aches so much." I know. There's no need to say more." Since the beginning of autumn, the 3 members of the Dew family had been living in Peachwater Village as relatives of our household. It had already been nearly half a year. This was the first time I had ever seen Madame Margaret Dew cry. She had once been the only daughter of a minister of revenue. At 15 she married Duke Harrison Dew. Husband and wife respected and supported each other for decades. But now, her husband, son, and daughter-in-law had all been suspected by the emperor and exiled to the freezing frontier. For half her life she had lived in wealth and honor, always helping the poor and doing good deeds. Yet when her family collapsed, the only people willing to take in the three of them were simple villagers. Was the world truly filled with people who repaid kindness? With betrayal? I didn't understand. And I didn't have the time to try to understand. I only knew that I was the eldest daughter of this family. Above me were elderly grandparents. Below me were younger siblings. I had to find a way to earn money as quickly as possible to support everyone. Thinking about Annie Dew's greedy little appetite, I realized that if it weren't for her love of food, I might never have come up with the idea of selling salted sesame oil cakes. I had already done the calculations. After deducting all costs, each sesame oil cake could earn a profit of 1 copper coin. If I could sell 50 cakes a day, that would be 50 copper coins in profit, far better than washing clothes for others. When my father heard that I planned to go to town to sell my goods, he became a little hesitant. Our family has 8 mu of farmland. Surely that's enough to support one person's studies, isn't it? Grandmolly shot him a sharp glare. Do you even know how much a good set of brush, ink, paper, and inkstone costs? Gian from our house was born a noble young master. Do you really have the heart to let that child keep using other people's old things forever? But from Peachwater village to the town is more than 10 miles. Chunner is a girl. What if something happens on the road? I hurriedly spoke up. My legs are long. Walking 10 or so miles is nothing. Besides, I've already arranged to go with Brother Lou from the neighboring village. The two of us will walk to town together every day, and our stalls will be right next to each other. And what about the chicks? My father said, frowning as he searched for another reason. Finally, he used the newly hatched chicks as an excuse. Madame Margaret Dew, who was sitting nearby, burst out laughing. Chunner's father really dotes on his daughter. Grandmolly was so annoyed that her nose almost twisted. What a timid and useless man, yet he still wants to save face. And so, starting in the 12th lunar month, I began carrying baskets of salted sesame oil cakes to the town to sell. Standing on the busiest street in town, I raised my voice and shouted, "Sesame cakes here! Sesame cakes here!" Salted sesame oil cakes with 1,000 crispy layers, fragrant and delicious. Beside me, Brother Lou refused to be outdone. "Candied hawthorns here! Candied hawthorns here! Sweet and crispy hawthorns that won't stick to your teeth." To be honest, on that entire street, our voices were the loudest. On the first day, my business was fairly decent. I sold 36 sesame cakes, each cake sold for 3 copper coins, and the net profit was 36 coins. There were others in town selling cakes too, but no one made them as delicious as mine, on the entire street. Only my cakes were baked in a clay oven. Brother Lou's wife was pregnant and had been craving food lately. There were 10 cakes left in my basket, so I gave 6 of them to him and kept 4 for the children at home. Brother Lou rubbed his hands together awkwardly. "Sister Swan, tomorrow you can take a break. I'll help you shout for customers." He immediately began shouting loudly, "Sesame cakes here! Candied hawthorns here! 1,000 layers sesame cakes here! Rock sugar candied hawthorns here!" Half a month later, my business grew better and better. By the middle of the 12th lunar month, I was selling more than 60 sesame cakes every day. As the new year drew closer, more and more traveling merchants passed through the town. They had probably worked hard the entire year and were now hurrying home to reunite with their families. One day, a group of about 20 merchants stopped in front of my stall. Salted sesame oil cakes. Are they good? A man who appeared to be their leader sat atop a glossy black horse and called down from above, smiling warmly. I broke a cake in half, wrapped one piece carefully in a white handkerchief, and raised it up to him. Please try it, sir. If it isn't tasty and crispy, you don't have to pay. He glanced at me twice, slightly frowned, then reached out and took the cake. Breaking off a small piece, he placed it into his mouth. Not bad. He nodded faintly, his expression calm. As long as someone tasted it, no one ever failed to praise it. I smiled and looked toward the people behind him. How many would you like me to wrap for you, sir? Haha. 30. All freshly baked this morning, still warm. The man gave a soft snort. Though his words sounded like praise, there was a hint of mockery. You certainly know how to do business. Immediately, he pulled a piece of silver from inside his robe and tossed it to me. Wrap them all up. Yes, of course. I weighed the silver in my hand. Sir, this is too much. The extra is your reward. Oh. Thank you, sir. I spoke quickly. Sir, would you like to try our candied hawthorns too? They were just made. Sweet and crispy, they won't stick to your teeth. Eating sweets in the 12th month means the coming year will be sweet as well. I swiftly wrapped the sesame cakes and handed them to the man beside him, then enthusiastically helped Brother Lou promote the candied hawthorns. There were plenty of wealthy people in town, but someone who could casually throw out silver without blinking like this was rare. If I could earn a little extra, that would be even better. Brother Lou was indeed quick-witted. The moment I finished speaking, he immediately followed my lead. He pulled a bright red skewer of candied hawthorns from the bundle of straw and handed it up to the man. Honored sir, please give it a try. If it isn't sweet and crispy, you don't have to pay. The man froze for a moment. He didn't reach out to take the skewer, but neither did he refuse. Instead, he said calmly, wrap them all up as well. Brother Lou's face lit up with joy. Yes, sir. You are truly generous. The man left with a large bag of sesame cakes and a bundle of candied hawthorns. Brother Lou and I looked at each other. So happy that we both shouted at the same time, we've struck it rich. From that day on, my eyes constantly watched the merchant caravans passing through town, hoping to meet another generous and easygoing customer like him. Unexpectedly, my luck was truly good. Within just a few days, that noble gentleman appeared again, and it was the same man as before. The sesame cakes you sold that day, everyone praised them. In 5 days, my caravan will head north. Would you be willing to prepare some travel rations for us? He wore a dark blue cloak, his tall and slender figure elegant and dignified. Standing before my simple sesame cake stall, he seemed particularly striking. The moment I saw him, my heart suddenly began pounding. My face flushed red, afraid he had returned to ask for the extra silver he had given me. But his words filled me with overwhelming joy. Yes. Of course I'm willing. How many days of rations do you need prepared, sir? There are about 15 or 16 people. The round trip will take around 20 days. A caravan like his would certainly stay at inns along the road, where food wouldn't be lacking, so I quickly calculated. In that case, I can prepare 500 sesame cakes, 30 gin of dried meat, and 40 gin of pickled vegetables as snacks for the road. That should be enough. This time, he took out a silver ingot from inside his robe. Here are 2 taels. Take it. Startled, I waved my hands in panic. No, no. That's far too much. He immediately furrowed his willow-shaped eyebrows. Good heavens, for a man to have such beautiful willow-shaped brows. How could the women of the world possibly compete? Yet somehow, I faintly felt that within those elegant brows there was a trace of quiet sadness. Don't talk so much. Just prepare everything properly. Outwardly, I reluctantly agreed. But inside my heart was as joyful as if a festival had arrived. Yes, sir. I will deliver everything to the Qing Feng Inn in 4 days. When I brought the 20 taels of silver home, my whole family was stunned. Is this really 20 taels? Lily Chen rubbed the silver ingot on the table, her eyes staring blankly as if she had lost her soul. Grandma Li immediately smacked her on the head. Wipe your drool. If it falls on the silver and melts it, what will we do then? My father scratched his head, looking bewildered. Chunner. That guest doesn't have any bad intentions, does he? Grandma Li turned around and gave him another heavy smack. It's the coldest days of the 12th month. Stop talking nonsense. As expected, the most experienced person was Madame Margaret Du. She counted on her fingers calmly and said, 4 days is a little rushed. Chunner, the pickled vegetables in our house are already prepared, so there's no need to make more. Dried meat is easy too. It's the 12th month, every household hangs dried meat under their eaves. We can just buy some. It will only cost a few taels of silver. As for the sesame cakes, if the whole family works together, we should finish in time. Well then, let's start kneading the dough right away. Before she had even finished speaking, Jian and Annie Du both jumped to their feet. We'll go start the fire and prepare the oven. My mother was holding Liu Chen on the bed, looking apologetic. I'm like this. I can't help you children with anything. Outside, snow was falling heavily. Inside the kitchen, the fire burned warmly, glowing red. Looking around the room at all the people I loved, my heart suddenly felt incredibly warm. Yes, life might be full of hardships, but as long as family remained by your side, what was there to fear? For days passed in the blink of an eye. I rode to town on Samuel Zhao's ox cart from Peachwater Village and knocked on the door of the Qing Feng Inn. Inside a clean and spacious room, the refined and proud guest stood looking at the piles of luggage scattered across the floor. His eyes revealed clear satisfaction. You're young, yet you work very efficiently. Then he pointed to a large bundle and asked curiously, what is this? They're knee guards, gloves, and cotton scarves, I replied. The elders in my family said we couldn't accept your silver without giving something in return. So they stayed up all night making these, thinking they might be useful. Oh, right, there's also a fox fur hat specially made for you. The stitching may be rough, but it blocks the wind very well. I carefully took the fox fur hat out and handed it to him. When I lifted my head and saw those willow-shaped brows, so beautiful that even the greatest painter could never capture them, my face suddenly grew hot. This man was simply too handsome, even more handsome than the handsome young men in the countryside. Take brother Leo Lu, the candied hawthorn seller, for example. His kind of good looks made people feel he could sit at the village entrance, drink wild leaf tea with friends, and nibble roasted sweet potatoes. But the man before me, he was like snow on a mountain peak, like the moon hidden among clouds. Someone you could only admire from afar, never touch. When he saw the hat in my hands, the snow on the mountain peak looked slightly surprised. Who made this? I bit my lip and answered softly, my grandmother. She's very skillful with her hands. Thank you. To my surprise, he cheerfully put the hat on. The white fox fur hat matched perfectly with the pale blue robes he was wearing today. After inspecting the goods, he ordered someone to carry everything downstairs. Soon, only the two of us remained in the room. He sat down on a chair, his deep gaze fixed on me. "Would you like to go to the capital and open a shop? I have some connections there who could help you." The capital. For a moment, the image of Madame Julia Joe flashed through my mind. Everyone said the capital was a wonderful place, but my benefactor had died there without even a place to be buried, in a place where people devoured others without leaving even the bones. Could it really be good? So I shook my head and refused. I'm just a village girl who has never experienced the world. As long as I have food to eat, I'm already satisfied. Oh. Is that really how you think? I see that you love silver very much. If you went to the capital, perhaps you could earn several chests of dowry for yourself. He seemed surprised that I rejected the offer so firmly. A few strange flashes appeared in his eyes, but I simply shook my head again. The elders in my family once said that every person has their own fate. One must not be greedy. His gaze lingered on my face for a long time. Finally, he only murmured softly, taking a sip of fragrant tea, he said, "You're a good child. Your family also understands propriety and kindness." That's very good. On his youthful face, for some reason, there seemed to be a trace of relief. Could it be that everything he had said earlier was only meant to test me? Sure enough, the thoughts of wealthy people were not something a common villager like me could easily guess. The transaction was completed, silver exchanged for goods, but when I was about to leave, he casually called me back. He tossed a small cloth pouch to me. "For the little ones in your family. Let them buy some snacks." After finishing this deal, I felt completely relaxed. My steps became light and swift. The road from the town back to Peachwater Village was more than 10 miles long, yet I seemed to arrive in no time at all. Unexpectedly, when I reached the well at the entrance of the village, I saw a group of people gathered there, arguing loudly. When I listened carefully, good heavens! The person arguing fiercely was none other than Madame Margaret Dew, who had once been the wife of Duke Harrison Dew. And beside her was my own grandmother, the most formidable woman in Peachwater Village, Grandma Lee, Lydia Lee. Standing opposite them was Martha Zhang, the notorious shrew of the village. Her husband had died years ago from edema, leaving her a widow. Now she had to raise 3 sons alone. Often they went hungry. At first, the villagers of Peachwater Village were kind. They would sometimes bring food for her children, but because Martha Zhang was jealous by nature and spoke with a sharp, bitter tongue, that kindness gradually faded away. Not long ago, she had no choice but to sell her 2 mu of barren land, and the person who bought it was my father. Today, for some reason, Widow Zhang had come looking for trouble with my 2 grandmothers. She pointed angrily and shouted, "Lydia Lee, I see you're sheltering people of unknown origin in your house. Who knows, maybe they're thieves who stole their master's money and ran away. If not, how could your family suddenly have money to buy land? With useless people like Daniel Chen and his daughter, buying land? It's already impressive that you're not starving to death." My father might be stubborn, but he wasn't a bad man. Hearing Widow Zhang insult him like that made my chest burn with anger. But the one even angrier than me was Grandma Lee. The moment Widow Zhang finished speaking, Grandma Lee leapt forward, grabbed her by the hair, and growled through clenched teeth, "My son might be useless, but it's not your place, a black-hearted woman like you, to sneer at him. Think back carefully. When your husband cried out in pain from stomach illness, the doctor clearly said he could be saved. But you refused to spend the silver for treatment. You were the one who killed him. As for the people staying in my house, why should I report it to you? If you're so free, why don't you worry about protecting that last miserable piece of land you have left? Otherwise next year you'll have to go begging. And remember the drought 3 years ago? If it weren't for that lady helping several families in Peachwater Village, they would have starved to death. She has done kindness to me and kindness to this whole village. And what about you? You useless thing. Mud that can't even stick to a wall. Bah. 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 Madame Margaret Dew might not be able to pull someone's hair like Grandma Lee, but she immediately followed Grandma Lee's lead and scolded loudly, "A widow like you can't even fill your stomach, yet you still paint your face and stick flowers in your hair. Anyone can see you're raising a secret lover somewhere." I couldn't help laughing and crying at the same time. Wasn't this exactly what people meant when they said, "Stay close to ink and you'll be stained black, stay close to vermilion and you'll become red"? If you stayed near Lydia Lee long enough, you would definitely learn how to curse people. Sure enough, the phrase raising a secret lover struck Widow Zhang like a dagger. She immediately threw herself at Grandma Lee, and the two women began fighting fiercely, while Widow Zhang continued shouting vulgar insults at Madame Margaret Dew. Just then, Village Chief Lee arrived at almost the same time as I did. "Stop fighting. Widow Zhang, let go. Grandma Lee, stop pulling her hair." Village Chief Lee still carried considerable authority in Peachwater Village. The moment he shouted, people rushed forward to separate them. Reluctantly, Grandma Lee and Widow Zhang released each other. Widow Zhang's hair looked like a messy chicken's nest, tears and mucus running down her face. She looked utterly miserable. She immediately began shouting again, "Village Chief Lee. That Chin family eats the rice of Peachwater Village and drinks the water of Peachwater Village. You can't just ignore this." Village Chief Lee sighed. His eyes looked at Widow Zhang with a mixture of pity and anger. "Let's not mention this matter again. You're simply unwilling to accept selling your land. So you're venting your anger on others. It's nearly the end of the year. Go home and make tofu instead of causing trouble. Everyone disperse now. Go on, disperse." The villagers laughed and chatted as they gradually scattered. I hooked my arms around my two victorious grandmothers and proudly walked home with my head held high. On the way, Grandma Lee couldn't help praising Madame Margaret Dew. "Your scolding just now was excellent." Madame Margaret Dew, however, looked thoughtful. I never expected a small village chief in Peachwater Village to understand reason better than people in the capital. People in the capital. Who exactly are they? I tilted my head deliberately and asked. Grandma Lee burst out laughing and slapped my back. "Stop talking nonsense, you silly girl. Hurry home and clean the house. Steam corn buns, make tofu, and prepare offerings for the ancestors." Before we knew it, the end of the year arrived. On the last days of the 12th month, Grandma Lee quietly pulled Madame Margaret Dew aside and spoke hesitantly. "Madame Margaret, there's something I've been hiding from you. That year, we couldn't find the body of Madame Julia Zhou. So I built a symbolic grave for her beside the Chin family ancestral tomb behind the mountain. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like and subscribe to Love Stories with Lisa for more stories. Thank you so much.